right. Hello, this is Melanie Steffi, and I am a fifth grade teacher at Governor Mifflin Intermediate School. And today I'm going to be doing an interview about the CRA model in mathematics. CRA stands for concrete, representation, and abstract. And a lot of elementary teachers already utilize this model in their classroom. They don't even realize it has a fancy language for it. So I'm here with Joshua Hoyt, and he taught a couple professional development classes that I went to with the CRA model, and he graciously accepted my invitation to do an interview. And so, Josh, thanks for joining me today. And can you just share a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Thank you for doing this. I started my career as a high school math teacher and left there, was hired as a K-12 math coordinator in a district where I oversaw the professional development for mathematics and curriculum instruction and assessment. We utilized everyday math. So I spent a lot of time with transitioning to from the legacy standards to the PA core standards in math. Following that, I left the district, went to another district as a high school assistant principal. So I was a high school assistant principal in addition to being the district's K-12 math coordinator. So that district as well, I also supported that district with everyday math and helped again with that district's transition to the PA core standard and provided a lot of professional development in math there. Left that district and went to another district and served as a supervisor of mathematics K-12, where I was responsible for providing professional development in math, supervision and evaluation of all teachers teaching math, state testing, CDT, the use of instructional tech in the math classroom. And following that, I've been now at the intermediate the last 4 years, where the bulk of what I do is still in math, professional development. I'm also a Google certified trainer, so I provide a lot of Google trainings. Also an Apple teacher, so I do a lot of teacher trainings in regard to the use of tech with Apple. And I'm also a statewide CDT trainer and one of the lead CSI school math trainers as well.
So you've been pretty much involved with math and technology for most of your life.
Yeah, I'm going on 17 years now. So.
Wow. All right, so can you just go ahead and just give us a little bit of a gist of what the CRA model is and how it's used in the math classroom?
Sure. So it's like you had mentioned, CRA isn't anything new. It's taking a look at John Van de Wal's research back from like the mid to late 2000s that really talks about the use of making sense of numbers and algorithms in a way that's more conceptual versus procedural. So this is it's going back to the grassroots of making sense of the math by not just introducing the numbers and symbols, but using manipulatives. So using base 10 manipulatives, counter chips, dice to really focus on concept of a number. The idea of place value is a heavy focus, and then building into the concepts of addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and fractions. So it stands for concrete, representational, and abstract, which concrete is making sense of the mathematics by moving objects, whether, again, that's counter chips, dice. In kindergarten, they use a lot to teach one-to-one correspondence and cardinality. So using the bears, they use a lot, or things that are specifically one-to-one to teach that. Using dice to help with the concept of subitization, which subitize means the ability to recognize the amount of a quantity without counting it. That's why dice are very popular. So because when I roll a die and I see a 5, I don't count the dots on the 5. I just know that that's a 5. So helping to build the concept of a number is helping to establish a stronger sense of number sense, which then ties into then being able to work with the new concepts of 10 frames. One of the big reasons why 10 frames are taught at this conceptual level is kids need to understand what a 10 is in order to work with double-digit numbers. So using counter chips at a concrete stage in a 10 frame to represent a number, or to represent something like 8 plus 2, to see I have 8 chips and 2 chips, which makes a full 10, that's a lot more effective than just giving kids a rocket math worksheet and saying, memorize 8 plus 2. Because kids will say 8 plus 2 is 10, but they don't know what it means. And if they don't know that 8 plus 2 equals 10 means now I have a 10, or 8 plus 3 equals 11, which means a 10 and a 1, they're just memorizing a sequence of facts that have no meaning or basis for problem solving. So CRA really helps to address that component as well as the language component of place value, because again, I go back to 11. 11 is a number that kids memorize, but if you don't understand that 11 is a 10 and a 1, you're going to struggle with multiplying 343 times 21 because you don't understand that the place value meaning with it. So CRA also does a lot of focus on the concept of place value. So when I see a number 31, I don't just say 31. I do 3 tens, 1 1. When I see 143, I see it's 100, 4 tens, 3 ones. So I'm always stating the value of the digit in its place over and over and over, so that I move away from a lot of the abstract models for which a lot of us were taught. We were taught with addition using the terms carry and borrow for subtraction and put a 0 there for multiplication. And a lot of people were successful at that, but they just mimicked a procedure and basically did problems without learning any math. They just completely mimicked what the teacher did. And a lot of times the teacher would say, just do this because, or trust me. Like, why do we flip fractions when we divide? You just do it because. You do it because it always works, and that's what we were told. So this really goes back into that concept of focusing on the why and that conceptual component of it. You know, why can we add left to right when all of us, all we did was learn to add right to left? Yeah, so it focuses on that component. So the concrete stage is all about the use of manipulatives. So kids transition from counter chips to dice, to then the base 10 manipulatives to represent place value and addition. And then the representational is simply just drawing the manipulatives. So now instead of having the counter chips in front of me, I draw the counter chips. Instead of having the base 10 manipulatives, I draw my ones, my tens, my hundreds. So getting kids to move to that stage now gets the idea of an additional check for understanding as they transition to the abstract, which is the way all of us learn math. You know, show me what 8 plus 3 is, that's 11. But now if kids have this CRA component, now a child can say 8 plus 3 is 11, but they could draw 8 ones and 3 ones, combine all their ones, exchange all those ones to make a 10, to show that 11 truly is a 10 and a 1 by drawing the base 10 manipulatives. So a lot of the focus is moving towards now the integration of the technology with it. So using some of the apps on the iPad, like number frames and the virtual manipulatives library, because they have the digital versions of these manipulatives now. So kids can kind of do both in one essence. A lot of researchers will argue back and forth, you know, is using an iPad and virtual manipulatives, is that concrete or is that representational? And my argument is, who cares? You know,
I was just about to say the same thing. I was
it
like,
doesn't
it's
matter.
in between,
You know?
but at the same time, like, that's kind of how kids are learning nowadays. Like,
Right.
they're very much hands-on in the digital world.
Right. So that was a really long-winded answer, but in a nutshell, it's moving away to the way we learn math, where we were just given example 1, example 2, example 3, try all these, and moving back to, let's get the pencil out of our hand and manipulatives into our hands so that we can really make sense of the math. So that when the teacher can say, why is this, we can explain versus, will it look just like the one you did?
Yeah, and you actually, with that answer, you answered a lot of the questions that I was getting ready to ask you, which is great. So I can just kind of go on. I wanted to look at the other side of this whole, I do understand that, like, I'm a 5th grade teacher,
Right.
working a lot with my colleagues. Sometimes they really struggle to use the concrete representational, and they just want to jump strictly to the abstract. Why do you think that in the upper grades, specifically like upper elementary and middle school, they want to just quickly jump to the abstract and not really focus on the concrete and the drawing aspect?
Well, probably the 2 biggest reasons for that, in my opinion, and based off my experiences, is 1, people teach math the way they learned it or the way they're comfortable teaching it. And for all of us, that's a lot of how we learned it. And 2, the number 1 argument is that I don't have enough time. I don't have
Yes.
enough
I
time.
was going to say, I use that argument all the time.
Yep. And my counter argument to the time is, how much time are you re-giving them similar types of problems over, re-showing them examples over and over? If you're doing that, I don't want to say I hate using the term you're beating a dead horse, but, you know, take the time to go back and use some of this, and you might find that for a lot of kids, they don't need that additional remediation. So it's you can't really knock it until you try it, because I've been in classrooms where they've told me, well, I got to get through this curriculum and I got to do this, but with math, everything is so connected that if you don't address and go back to those grassroots of things like place value, they're going to have misconceptions in a lot of the different computations you move in your curriculum. And then again, you're going to revisit that and over and over and over and over, and you're going to frustrate yourself, and ultimately the kids are going to get frustrated. So it's that piece of it, but it's also too, it's still if you're a fifth grade teacher, you're still in a very trying time right now, because you're still teaching a curriculum and content that's assumed that you've had A, CRA since kindergarten, and B, the PA course since kindergarten, which isn't true yet in the Commonwealth. So, a lot of districts have transitioned into different programs. And again, they use different language. So I do empathize in that fact, but time and just the nature and comfortability of how we learn and want to teach math is the two biggest reasons why.
Yeah, I did try this year in fifth grade to teach the traditional long division method using the CRA approach. We started with base 10 blocks, and I was absolutely amazed my first day or two. Like the kids with the concrete, they nailed it. Kids with the representational drawing right away, even my lower level learners were able to solve the long division problems. But then it was that third time of trying to connect it to the abstract. That's when I really started losing the kids. And because of the time element, I rushed through it. And I feel like I ended up losing that whole CRA model because I didn't look for the transfer.
Right. And part of that is that what you do is you want the kids, having kids use the representational as a check for understanding is exactly what you want. If I convert it to that, or the more you can see if kids are taking an algorithmic model and then trying to draw the manipulatives, they're building in a check for understanding. They're building a graphic organizer for themselves with that. And like, I'll hear that from teachers. So I'm trying to transition them from representational. In my opinion, it's not a matter of transitioning them away from representational. It's more of transitioning into the abstract, but you're still using representational as a means for understanding.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I with my fifth graders, I don't even remember. I had something I wanted to say and I didn't want to. Well, we'll jump to the next topic anyway. The last thing I wanted to ask you is, like, how can technology be used with a CRA model? You kind of touched on it. Do you have any like particular go-to resources online that you use?
I said the number frames app through the virtual manipulatives library has the counter chips, has the 10 frames, has the base 10 manipulatives, and those it's a web app that you can use on any device. And then if you have an iPad, you can download the apps for free. So that allows the kids to completely utilize all of those manipulatives entirely for free, again, to help. And what the cool feature about it is it also has an interactive whiteboard in the background. So the kids can drag out the manipulatives, but then they can also draw the abstract version of the numbers and symbols right there within it. So those are ones that I use a lot. Even within Google itself, you can build your own 10 frames in Google Sheets, Google Docs, Google Drawings as well. I use Google Drawings for money as a means for CRA because kids don't experience or use money at all. So using the Explore tool in Google Drawings and putting dollars and quarters and the ability, drag out into the drawing how much change is left over when you purchase something. So, there's a lot of different ways that you can utilize those within the classroom, and majority of them are free. So.
Excellent. And I do remember what I was going to say. A lot of my fifth graders, it's a push for some of my higher level students. If I ask them to draw models, they don't want to draw models. They want to jump right to the math. And the kids who are drawing pictures or using the manipulatives, a lot of times they feel like they aren't as good at math compared to their other high achieving, like super quick, accurate classmates. So I didn't know, did you have any advice working with students and getting them to realize that it's not all about speed in math?
Right. And that's, that's the thing. It's really about language, and it's one of my mantras right now is that I'm trying to promote with people is that we're all good at math. We're just good at math in different ways. And, those types of students are very logistical and mathematical. The ones that you were talking about first, they're the ones that are answer driven. They're procedure driven. They're perfectionists sometimes in a sense. And to them, trying to explain or say to them, show me another way, takes them so
Yeah,
out of
they
their
have to
comfort
a lot of
zone.
times.
Right. And sometimes for some of those kids, you have to be careful of it. Are they truly excelling at math, or are they just mimicking problems? Because that's
Good
two different
memorizers.
things. Right. You think about a spelling bee. You can memorize words and how to spell them, but do you know how to use them in the context of a sentence? Do you know what those words mean? It's a big difference. I can YouTube how to, fix my some plumbing thing and watch step by step, but does that mean I know how to, could I do that in the future? Absolutely not. So that's the important things for them, is that's showing me why. Explain your reasoning, because those are the kids who struggle at that tremendously. So for a lot of those kids, what you can do is give them a problem that's already worked out and just say, explain what happened here. That's how you help to transition them into that modality of thinking. Whereas the kids who are using visuals and models, that tells you they're less logistical and analytical and more visual, more hands-on, more kinesthetic, which is still a very highly functional math student, just in a different means. That's what breaks my heart when these kids take their tests, is that they use those as a means for learning, but then when they have to sit in front of an exam, they don't have access to those types of
Yeah,
resources.
no, that is a shame. Well, I think we're a little bit over our 10-minute time frame, but that's all
Okay.
right, because this was excellent content and information related to CRA. So thanks again for
You're welcome.
Josh. I really appreciate the information here.
You're welcome. And I will, if you have any other questions or anything, don't hesitate to reach out.
Okay, sounds good.